This just in. The New York fans liked a player their team picked.
What?
That does not happen often, but they got the right guy in R.J. Barrett, and that was remarkable last night. And as Bobby Marks laid out earlier, the Knicks have the most cap space of any team during this offseason. This is an offseason that fans in New York have been pointing towards for a very long time. And there was a lot of hope they would get Zion. They had a 14% chance of that. They didn't, but who knows? Maybe they get the best player in the draft. The question is, where do they go from here, Brian Windhorst? What do they have around R.J. Barrett?
Yeah, well, I was with them last night up in Terrytown. They were so happy and so calm. Everybody was making all these trades in the first round, that was first 10 picks. They were just like, hey, man, we got our guy. We're not even taking calls. We're taking him. So they have made it very clear. They do not want to get into a situation where they overpay for an Amari Stoudemire, overpay for a Joakim Noah, make the mistake that they've made in the past, taking a second-tier free agent and paying him first-tier money. So as difficult as it may be, if they get told no by Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard and Kyrie Irving, they may not sign a major free agent this summer. They may look for veterans who can help develop their young guys. They may play R.J. Barrett a whole bunch of minutes and Dennis Smith Jr. and Kevin Knox and Mitchell Robinson, and they may win 26 games again. And what they're hoping is that because they're going to follow their plan, that it's eventually going to work. And they're not going to go offshoot and sign Jerome James or offshoot and trade for Jalen Rose like they did. When
Damn.
Don't you remember they traded for you had 6 guys on max contracts at one time?
Yeah, that was crazy. You remember who I got traded for? That's what makes it a good deal.
All of that seemed gratuitous. Anyway, Jay, let me ask you, before we get to the Knicks piece of this, let's talk about the RJ piece of this, because I have been saying for quite some time, regardless of where he went, that if you just, I understand that Zion is a phenom, and I cannot wait to see him play, and I hope he is every bit as special as it appears he has a chance to be. But if you're looking for skills that seem to directly translate to the next level, to me, R.J. Barrett was the most obvious player who was going to step right in and be a good NBA player with a chance to be a great one immediately.
He moves like James Harden a little bit. Doesn't shoot like James Harden, but moves like James Harden. I think he's really good in isolated situations. Pinch post wing. But here's what I hope, Renee. I understand that the fans may have lost patience with the Knicks. I hope fans don't lose patience with him, because he's one of the building foundations to where you want to be. And I guess the one thing for the Knicks to move forward, because they are moving forward in the right direction. And I will say, sometimes James Dolan says things here and there that derails them from what their mission is.
That is true.
If they can stay on track, they will land somebody, but they need to stay on track.
Yeah, just to be clear on what he's talking about, James Dolan, the owner of the Knicks, went on a radio show in New York, Michael Kay's show, several months ago and said, we feel very good about the chance that we're going to get big free agents. We're hearing from a lot of people. They all want to come here. At this moment, it does not appear that's going to be the case.
This is why I don't necessarily get too much caught up in hype or stats. Because, for example, UNC, Duke, and Kentucky had 9 players taken in the first round this year. None of those guys was in the Final Four. So the challenge now for these top players is to actually impact winning. And for you, a New York Knicks fan, why don't you look at a team like the Hawks? They're not doing knee-jerk moves to try to turn their situation around. They're patient. They're building through the draft. The Knicks have done it. You hope R.J. Barrett becomes a star, and then now he becomes an anchor, hopefully, depending on what happens in free agency. Of course, you're trying to go after the top guys.
But, Jalen Rose, you can't equate, impact winning to the NCAA tournament. That's a 1-game series. That's not like a 5-game series. It's hard to win. You know how it is. Like, you guys are the best team in basketball, and it's hard to win those games like that.
But it's just dubious to me that those 3 teams had 9 guys taken in the first round, but none of those guys played in this year's Final Four.
Yeah, but almost all of them were freshmen also, for whatever that's worth. But I get that they almost all are these days. Quickly, because you covered that team a lot. You were around Barrett. He wanted New York. What did you make of that? His personality, the fact that he was like, I want that. I want the spotlight. I want to be a Knick.
He's perfect for it, and it's gone all the way back to his childhood. This is something that he and his father talked about. You saw the emotion with him crying on his father's shoulder. A lot of that had to do with the fact that his father had told him, you will be a New York Knick one day. This is something that he has known his entire lifetime. One of my favorite moments from the night last night was when R.J. Barrett was leaving the arena, and he was walking up the stands just as a normal person, except he looked like a Pied Piper, and there were all these Knicks fans just following behind him, and you could see this presence about him in that moment. Some people would have been like, oh, you know, there's all these people behind me. He embraced it. He loved it.
And Brittany, he has something that I don't see a lot of people his age have. Because I had it during our interview. I was like, so you're about to make $9 million, $8 million. What are you going to do with it? He was like, I saw him almost think for a second about the materialistic things he wanted to spend it on and what he was going to say. Then he was like, nah, I just want to give back to my community. Like, you're never going to catch him in one of those situations where he's going to say something that the media is going to run away with. That's not him.
And I enjoyed seeing the tears from the top draft picks. And let me tell you guys how that plays out. It's so very emotional. When you know you're going in the top 3, you can have tears of joy. When you're Nasir Little, he wanted to cry for a different reason.
Yeah.
Bol wanted to cry for a different reason. So make sure when we context and we talk about, when you know you're going high and you get picked there, then you can exhale. But when you get picked and you're upset by the status of your draft, then it's a different story.
It was an interesting couple of days because the Knicks seem to have been locked in on R.J. Barrett basically since the night of the lottery, and then all of a sudden they're working out Darius Garland and they're working out, was it Kobe White or whoever it was? And it looked like they might have gotten sidetracked, but in the end they get the guy that we thought all along they would take. And so quickly, if we had to right now bet a designer suit on it,
yes.
Do we believe the Knicks are going to get one of the A-level free agents?
I think they are in the game for Durant. I think they're out on Kyrie. I think they're out on Kawhi. They're in the game for Durant.
Every time anyone says his name, I look right at you.
What did I say What did I say yesterday?
You said you think it's a possibility.
I say I think it's a possibility. I think the Knicks. I think Brooklyn. I think those are the teams that he's looking at.
I've never wavered.
And Golden State.
I've never wavered. You don't leave the Golden State Warriors to go to New York City, in my opinion, and you Kevin Durant, and you don't go play at Madison Square Garden.
All right, we'll see what he does there. Let's talk. We go from one storied franchise with a confusing history to another storied franchise with a confusing recent history, and that is the Lakers. As we sit back now and assess where they stand after a monumental week. I mean, it's just amazing how time moves these days. The Anthony Davis trade was Saturday. It's not even a week. That feels like it happened a very long time ago. So now that we see the way it all played out, Wendy, how do we feel the Lakers are situated?
Well, they have got to have, they just had a banner trade, but they have got to have a great next 10 days because the way that they use this free agent space, probably on multiple players, is going to establish what they're going to do this year, probably for the next couple of years, because they just don't have any young players to develop. They've traded them all. They can't develop those guys really, and they really can't trade anything. There's nothing to trade. They can't even trade their future picks because they're encumbered by the Stepien rule. So the players that they add in free agency, they just got to hit on them. Basically, they've got to have the inverse that they had in 2018 summer.
Yeah, I think they have to win now. They have to win now with this team. And, is one of those pieces that DeAndre Jordan, can he give them the height and the size to play along with Anthony Davis? Could that be Corey Joseph, which is another clutch client that can help them with the point guard position?
The crazy name is, talk about stories. The crazy name is D'Angelo Russell. The guy that they traded away. Nick Young, who we had a problem with, is gone. Magic Johnson, who wanted him out of there, is gone. Everybody who was on that roster is gone. The Nets are going to move on to Kyrie Irving probably. They could bring him back. They could trade away all those other number 2 picks, and they could bring him back, and he actually might be a fit for them on their roster.
What makes sense to you? What makes sense to you for the Lakers? I agree with Jay. If you're the Lakers, you have to try to start winning as quickly as you possibly can. The clock is obviously ticking on LeBron's prime. So where do you turn?
To me, what about guys like Patrick Beverley? Guy that can make an open shot, that can play defense.
You spent the whole spring talking about how he was on the best team in L.A.?
Correct. Hey, it's business. He was on a 1-year deal, too.
And get under everybody's skin. I like Patrick Beverley.
Wait.
Go ahead. But those are the type of moves I like versus a guy like D'Angelo Russell, to be honest, because he's a volume scorer. He's a 20-point scorer.
I just want to say that Jay Will just wrote a name on his
I wasn't saying for you to ask me, but you're going to ask me now. Might as well go ask me. I was saying, I don't know, because I know he just retired. But I'm just putting things in perspective. Maybe D. Wade? D. Wade still gives you minutes off the bench.
He's living in L.A.
He's in L.A.
Are we doing this?
I'm not saying I didn't hear this from anybody's camp. I'm just throwing this out there. Like, you want to win a chip. You've always wanted to play with Bron. You're right there in LA. You come off D-Wade can give you 15 minutes a game.
I think he retired.
Okay.
That's the whole. That's the whole. I think
this summer's gonna be fascinating to watch this all happen.
There isn't any
like
question
that.
he retired, but that doesn't necessarily. People have unretired before. Having said all of that, I want to throw one more name out at you. This DeMarcus Cousins. He played with Anthony Davis before. He liked him. I don't know what kind of contract he's going to demand or command from anybody else. Would that make any sense to you?
if I'm Boogie, I'm staying with the Warriors. They're going to be without KD.
They have markedly less money they can pay him than almost anybody else, right?
That's true, but if his market is not great anyway, he may put up a huge number. Now coming totally off the Achilles, they may need the scoring. He may get a bunch of points.
Correct. Draymond Green and DeMarcus Cousins have a chance to put up big numbers next year in Golden State.
All right,
But
we'll
don't forget AD and DeMarcus and Boogie played before
That's
in
what I
New
mean,
Orleans.
in New Orleans.
have
They
a
liked
good-
each other. They were
Yes,
effective
LeBron and
together.
Wade played together before in Cleveland.
When Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins, when Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins were together in New Orleans, DeMarcus Cousins was the starting center in the All-Star game. That's before he got the injury,
Yes,
and
he
obviously
was.
we've seen what's happened since there. All right, I got a break. Coming up here on Get Up as we continue.